Start.
Got
I
it.
think you got to click. Okay. Yeah. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Gallagher. I have with me Brother Chad Argon, and I wanted to make this video. We wanted to make this video to discuss our former positions, more so why we left our former positions. For those of you who don't know, I was the evangelist for Sure Foundation Baptist Church in Hawaii until roughly March of 2021. And I'll let Chad give you the details on when he left. But I just wanted to start off by saying this is not a video to attack Pastor Thompson. This is a video where we are going to tell our story, and we are going to explain to you what has happened to us since we left, and also to dispel some of the rumors about why we left and some of the things that have happened. I know Chad's going to get into his story and I'll get into mine, but I will tell you, I've talked with Chad since he left, and we'll get into the details of when we first spoke and everything, but we've had very similar experiences with treatment by Pastor Thompson, treatment by people in the churches. And I'm not saying that everyone has treated us poorly, but I do believe that things have been said about us that are not entirely accurate. So as I said, I don't want to make a video to attack Pastor Thompson. This is simply to come out and set the record straight, let the truth be told on why we actually left. So with that, Chad, why don't you go ahead and start by giving your story on why you left and what's happened since.
Yeah, so I went to Sure Foundation Baptist in Spokane. I was there for nearly 2 years, so it was getting close to 2 years. I don't know exact dates on it, but I became the evangelist in March 2020, and I left about the week before Easter of this year. So the reason I left, there was many reasons actually. I had a lot. The main reasons I left was, I had teenagers and I have all these kids, and it just didn't seem like there was the potential for more families to be attracted to our church. Just seemed like our church, I didn't like the spirit of it. The basic summary is I didn't like the spirit of not the church in Spokane. That church I thought was really, really good. And I thought it was actually a nice group of people, but the spirit that was in the, just the way Pastor Thompson comes off publicly, basically the spirit of the new IFB. I didn't like the cursing people, wishing people death all the time, and just, all about, preaching on homos and stuff like that. And not that I'm against that. It's just the overemphasis on those things. And the spirit of the new IFB to me is just a harsh and, very lacking in grace. And I didn't like that. And so I was worried about, we're never going to find sweet families to move, or not move, but to attend this church that, it seems like the people that are attracted to it are newly saved or, just diehard new IFBers. And I just wanted out of that. I didn't want to be around it anymore. And, when I left, everything was fine. I left. I told Pastor Thompson, I had a long list of reasons I was leaving. And I told him, number one, I don't have any fellowship for my children, something like that. And he said, okay, that's fine. And he didn't ask for any other reasons. So I just said, okay, well, he bought it, in a sense, in sales, if somebody says they agree to buy something, you don't keep selling it. You don't have to, if they say, yeah, I want this car, you don't have to keep telling them how great it is. Just, okay, you want the car, here's how much it costs. And so with this, I said, look, I'm leaving. I don't like the fact that my kids don't have any fellowship. And he said, great. So I left off the rest of the reasons. There's many reasons. The other reasons, I could have would have gotten into an argument, or maybe offended Pastor Thompson in some way, and I didn't want to do that. And he took it with the first reason. So I left based on that, I wanted a church basically with more grace and with more children of my children's ages. And so after I left, everything was fine. Like I said, we continued to go soul winning, and I made a video that hopefully it'll be uploaded tonight, but it's a video in response to some of the remarks he had on Sunday's sermon, where he just basically was just telling me how much I suck and just all this stuff. And one of the things in the video, he said, oh, he just wanted to hang around and go soul winning. Well, the fact is that after we left, the people we had developed a good relationship with, they invited us to continue soul winning with them. Not only just invited us like, hey, you're welcome, but more like, hey, would you really come with us? And so, yeah, I was like, great, that's fine, I'll do that. And so I continued going soul winning with them. Everything was fine. And I thought we were all in good shape. Pastor Thompson, I believe he had even called me or texted me and said, hey, brother, how you doing? Kind of a nice text. And I thought, oh, that was nice of him to reach out to me and see how I'm doing. And then just out of the blue, he preaches a sermon. Oh, I'm sorry. No, there was a group of texts. That's what it was. There was a group of texts, a chat room, like a group text. And somebody had said something about, Pastor McMurtry or Pastor Fritz or something like that about how, oh, they said Pastor Anderson said stupid is stupid. And I listened to the clip that he said, and it said Pastor Anderson does stupid things. And I just wrote back and said, look, I don't think he's saying he's stupid. He's just saying like, hey, we all do stupid things. Even Pastor Anderson does stupid things. And, one of the guys in that group took that as Chad's attacking Pastor Thompson, I guess. I don't know how you can see that. And again, I made a video. I even showed the text, so you can go back and read them yourself. And so Pastor Thompson sees that and preaches a sermon. And in the sermon, he mocks people that leave the church to go find a church with a sweet spirit. So obviously he's talking about me. And so my wife, she leaves a comment on YouTube saying, thanks for the shout out. I knew we'd probably get a shout out one of these days. And then the response from most of the Thompson family, the kids, it wasn't really Pastor Thompson I don't think it was him at all, actually. It was just his kids. Were just real nasty, I gotta fix something here. Don't let the door hit you on your way out. Good riddance. I wholeheartedly can't stand you. Just real nasty stuff. And so, it just kind of showed me and confirmed the reason I left. I left because I didn't like that angry, bitter spirit that I saw. And when we left, they proved to me that that is what I was leaving. I left that, and I'm glad I left, because you see it after you leave. I think that's I learned something about it too. It's like kind of opened my eyes that in this church, specifically Sure Foundation, I've seen other people, yourself included, that they can't leave and just be left alone. You leave and you're attacked. And I asked Pastor Thompson about this, and he said, well, I didn't say your name. And that's kind of how they do it. They say, well, I didn't say your name. The new leader in Spokane has preached several times and not said my name, but he said very obvious statements about me, that, oh, if your wife defends you and on YouTube, then you're a soy boy or something like that. And I'm like, okay, obviously he's talking about me. And they do these subtle jabs at you. And so, the thing about it is that they do this and then people react to it. We had never planned, he said in his video on Sunday, or sermon on Sunday, that we were going around talking crap. And that's just not the case. And I proved that in my video. But the thing is that if he would leave people alone when they leave the church, then they wouldn't even react and cause this scene in the first place. And so everything that we've ever done, as far as statements or, whatever, it's always a reaction. They feel like they can jab you or say bad things about you and expect no response. And when you respond, then they really come at you. And so anyway, I don't know if I said too much on that, but that's basically my experience with the new IFB and with Sure Foundation, specifically Sure Foundation Baptist Church. And I see where it's headed. It started with, I can't stand you. It went from that to you're Judas. And then it went from that to you're acting like a reprobate. And then it's headed to, and the ultimate destination is, he was a reprobate and he's always been a reprobate, and I knew it the whole time. And that is, I can see that happening. I don't see any other path towards that. If you react, you defend yourself, you essentially are headed down the path of reprobation. And it's sad, because a lot of nice people are considered reprobates. And the sad part about it too is a lot of these people, they get so burned that they don't become reprobate, but they end up just hating church, and they don't go soul winning, and they don't want anything to do with religion, and it's terrible. And so, part of the reason I want to make this video is because I want this exposed. Look, this is not right. It's not Christian. You can't treat people like this and get up every Sunday and Wednesday and preach your sermons and rail on people, and then just expect that there's no consequence for that. People need to see that this is what you're getting into if you're thinking about going to this church. And if you're already in this church, this is the way you will be treated someday if you ever leave. And so that's basically my story there. And yeah, so.
Great. I appreciate that. I'm going to pause this real quick for just 1 second. Pause the recording.
Okay, so yeah, that was basically my story in a nutshell. So why don't you tell, a little bit more about your story?
Yeah. So my wife and I, we started at Sure Foundation back when it was Verity Vancouver. We went to a church with Pastor Thompson prior to actually starting the church. So we were there from day one, and at first we loved the experience there, and eventually I was sent out to be an evangelist to Hawaii. Hawaii was not my first choice. I approached Pastor Thompson and wanted to go to Malaysia, but he told me Hawaii was first, and so I said, okay, well, I'll consider that. And we came over here for the Mega Soul Winning Marathon, and it was really receptive. Then we came over again for the mission trip. We did a church mission trip to Hawaii. And there was just some things that lined up, and I've told that story before, but there were things that lined up where it was like, okay, maybe we should just go now. And so we moved over here. It was good. We were here for about 2 years. In terms of why I left, my background is in building code and land use and things of that nature. And so I was asked on many occasions to assist either Pastor Thompson or other pastors in the new IFB had called me from time to time and asked me about helping them find a building when they were moving buildings and stuff. So Pastor Thompson had approached me regarding the building in Vancouver. And he told me that the building in Vancouver, the owner was not going to renew the lease and that they needed to find a new building, but it was time to find a new building anyways, because they needed to grow. And so I found a building and I sent it to him, and he went to see it. He spoke with the leasing agent. And after he spoke with the leasing agent, they were asked for, the church was asked for financial statements. And I actually had that conversation with the leasing manager, and he said, we just need you to send the financial statements for the past couple of years for the church. And I said, okay, I'll speak with Pastor Thompson. And I reached out to him and I found out that there were no financial statements that were prepared for the church. And he asked me to help make financial statements for the church. And I said, okay, I can do that. I have a business background. I definitely, I can do that, but I have to go through I can see now that you are getting distracted. I'm going to point out the gecko right here, because I can tell you're getting distracted.
It's very distracting now that I know.
That's what we get in Hawaii. We don't really have spiders. We have some other pests, but we get a lot of geckos. So don't mind the gecko right there. Anyways, so back to what I was saying. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll prepare that, but I have to go through all of the bank statements. And he gave me full access to the bank account, and I had seen things previously, like little snippets here and there, and we had discussed. And I'm not even going to go into details because I don't think those need to be made public, but we had discussed things with certain expenditures that were done personally that needed to be accounted for on personal income taxes. And we talked about that. And ultimately I went through and I went through all of the transactions, and I started to notice a pattern of spending that I believed might possibly be covetous. Now, I want to make it really clear when I'm saying this, I'm not saying, this isn't, I'm not making an accusation. I'm saying this is what I believed. My personal belief was that there was a pattern that that appeared that it might be covetous. And I discussed that with Pastor Thompson. And I talked about the spending, and I believed that the financial position of the church was not a good one. So at that point, I wasn't really sure, but shortly after I had that conversation with him, he also reached out to me regarding the building in Spokane. And when he had originally taken over the building in Spokane, there was a previous owner, and the previous owner sold the building, and then he had to do a lease renewal in 2000, and I want to say it was 2019, 2020. And at the same time, it was kind of this crazy thing because the building owner changed. They had to renew the lease, and there was a fire marshal inspection that they failed. And the reason they failed the fire marshal inspection is because the certificate of occupancy does not list a church. It lists a church office. And the occupant load that was permitted, the number of people that were permitted inside the space was 10 people. And I was sent over the fire marshal's report, and I was asked to speak with the fire marshal regarding the issues that he had with egress and life safety and fire suppression system. So I spoke with the fire marshal on numerous occasions, and we came to an agreement. I actually disagreed with him on certain things, but ultimately I'm not the one who has jurisdiction, it's the fire marshal. And based on the current layout of the building, at that point, there was the church that was up on, and you can help me out with this. I want to say it's like the third floor, right? It's either the second or the third. It's what? Second, but there's like 3 flights of stairs basically, right?
Yeah, so you gotta go up, landing.
Yeah.
There's 2 landings.
So down below, there's a veterinary clinic. Now, there was always a veterinary clinic there, but there was something that changed between 2019 and 2020, and I'll get into that in a second. But I had a discussion with the fire marshal, and the agreement that we came to was, okay, you can use this as a church for the sanctuary, but the occupant load needs to be kept at 29 people because you only have 1 means of egress. Now, I first argued that there's a stair out the back that we could potentially make a compliant means of egress, but he said there was no way that it was going to. And I was told it was a fire escape. I think he actually used the term ship's ladder. So, I mean, I agreed with him that that's not a compliant means of egress. And while I disagreed with his interpretation of particular things on the code, the agreement was this building is safe for 29 occupants in this space. That's it. And Pastor Thompson and I discussed, okay, well, we have 1 year, you're going to renew this lease. We have 1 year. Right now, you're not running over 29 people. If you start to get towards 29 people, we need to have a discussion with the landlord and try to break the lease and find a new building. Going back to 2021, he came to me again and he said, it's time to renew the lease in Spokane. I need you to look over the lease. And we had a discussion about how many people were there. And he said, yeah, we're over the 29. I talked about putting provisions in the lease where the landlord was going to update things and make it compliant. I talked about the landlord putting in the lease that he was going to change it to a church, that it wasn't going to be listed as a church office anymore. Trying to make everything legal, but also safe. Yeah. And we had a few back and forth. The landlord didn't want to do anything. Pastor Thompson, I said, maybe we should just think about getting another building. And ultimately I told him, I was like, this is my opinion. You cannot sign this. This is this lease is really bad for the church for 2 reasons. 1, the building, if you're putting more than 29 people there, it's unsafe. 2, between the time that we renewed the lease and the time that the lease was up that we were discussing, the pet hospital or the veterinary clinic had turned from a regular veterinary clinic into a 24-hour pet hospital. And
it was an emergency only, which is only after hours and on weekends.
Right. Yeah. And so now they're doing surgery they have oxygen, they have, Bunsen burners. And when you look at it from a building code perspective, that is a much higher fire hazard than just a regular walk-in veterinary clinic because there's a higher potential fuel load. The issue becomes the one open stair that you have that's the compliant means of egress. And I don't want to get too convoluted with it, but essentially that open stair that leads directly to that veterinary clinic downstairs. If there's a fire, which the potential is quite high in a emergency pet hospital, that staircase, which is your only compliant legal means of egress for people to get out, acts as a chimney. And I said, this is, I don't feel comfortable with this. If there's a fire, the likelihood that someone is going to die or get seriously injured is extremely high. The lease is, he was essentially indemnifying the landlord against any of that, making the church negligent if anything were to happen. And I said, you cannot sign this lease. And he said, I'm going to sign it. I'm talking with him on Friday. I didn't hear from him again, but he also assured me, we're not going to have more than 29 people there. And then immediately on Sunday, following the lease signing, they had, I think it was like 71 people.
The anniversary service, yeah.
Yeah. And so my issue was when I was asking him why can't we do this? I told him, you have time. We have a month. At this point, the lease was already up, but he had made a rent payment. And I told him in the email, I said, look, if your lease was up and you paid rent and he accepted it, you're a holdover tenant on a month-to-month lease. We have 1 month. We can tell him, hey, we're vacating the premises and give me 1 month and I can find you a new building that's safe for the people to move into. And he told me he couldn't afford it. He said, we can't afford to do that. We need to stay here for another year. And, once the church grows, and once we can afford it, we'll find a different building. And so going back to the finance issue, I knew at that point how much money was coming into the church. I didn't know who was giving it, but I knew that the money from Spokane was going to the same bank account in Vancouver. And I had an idea of what was coming in from Spokane. And I think you can probably give more details on that. But if it wasn't for those spending habits that I personally believed possibly showed a sign or a pattern of covetousness, there would have been no issue getting a proper and safe building in Spokane. And I want to, and I know some people, they have a different opinion on safety, and I've been accused of being overly cautious. I think that was one thing that Pastor Thompson had told you. But I just want to clarify why I am as cautious. Prior to working in building code, my background was actually in the fire service. And I've seen buildings that are unsafe. And I've pulled dead bodies out of buildings that have burned because buildings were unsafe. It's not something that I take lightly. And when you talk about the number of children we have, you talk about the adult to child ratio, children need help getting out of a building, people panic. And, the last thing that I want to do is be responsible for, or even partially responsible for someone getting, killed when they didn't need to be. In Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 8, says, when thou buildest a new house, then thou shalt make a battlement for thy roof, that thou bring not blood upon thine house, if any man shall fall from thence. It's a verse that I love because it's actually one of the first instances of building code in history. I've taught a lot of courses on building code, and I usually bring that up as a historical reference to the first building code. But essentially what it's saying is, if you're building a new house, and there's a couple things to look at with that verse. The first being, you're building a new house, you're doing something new. And then it talks about a battlement. If you're going to build a new house, if you're going to do something new, you have to put a battlement on it. And we don't really use the term battlement anymore, but it's basically a parapet. So if you think about like a flat roof, on top of it, you have a parapet that goes, and, modern code, we say it has to be at least 42 inches high. It's basically there so people don't trip and fall off the roof and die. And so what God is saying is, if you can afford to build a new house, you have to put the battlement there. If you can't afford to put the battlement there, you probably shouldn't be building the new house. And if you don't put a battlement there and you're building a new house and someone dies, that blood is upon you. And that blood is upon you is a really, I mean, we could go on for days and days about how stern that is. But the blood being upon you in scripture, I mean, essentially is saying you're guilty of murder. You're guilty of killing someone. And we know what the penalty is for that. So it's not something that I take lightly. And when we're talking about, hey, we're doing things, this is the church, we're doing things for the house of God, we're doing things for the people. I personally believe that we have a responsibility, as obviously not in church leadership anymore, but as people previously in church leadership or any church leadership, I believe that they have a responsibility to make sure that they're keeping the people in their church safe. And if there's things that get in the way of that, whether it be, whatever personal spending you want to do, I don't think that's acceptable. I think that when you begin to sacrifice safety, even though God obviously makes it something important in scripture, if you're going to sacrifice that because you want to spend money the way that you want to, and not as, I'm the pastor, this is how, when I say the spending habits, I mean, for personal use. I have a problem with that. And I do believe that that is covetousness. That's my personal opinion. Again, I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying, I'm not coming to the people in Vancouver and saying this is the accusation, because I understand that it is a 1 Corinthians 5 accusation, but that was my opinion, and that is why I chose to leave. I know I've kind of rambled on a little bit on that, but I do want to move on. That's my story in a nutshell, but I do want to move on to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, go ahead. Actually, go ahead.
I just wanted to move on to some of. I understand now why you left. I think I had a good understanding of it already from our previous conversations. But even now, you telling it again, like, it gives me even more insight. And I think there's been a lot of rumors out there about, both on your part and on my part, why you left, why I left. For me, there were things said about why I left that are completely not accurate. So maybe we can talk a little bit about yours, and then I'll share some of the experience that I had afterwards with the inaccurate.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I did a whole video on it last night. It's a 2-hour video. It's pretty long, but it details a lot, because in that sermon on Sunday, he gave the reasons why I left. And, they were all wrong, of course. One of them was that I left because I have a pope named Tommy McMurtry, and I was following basically him, and I never was a good leader, follower. I totally sucked and all that stuff.
Well, I'm going to cut you off for just a second, because I don't know if you know this or not. I know I did catch a video on Sunday from Pastor McMurtry, and just in case you didn't know, he is now destroyed. He completely disbanded the new IFB. And he demoted himself to the pastor of Liberty Baptist Church, and he has stepped down as Pope. So you no longer have a Pope. I'm sorry.
Dang it. Well, so what is he now? Is he just like a regular pastor?
He's just a regular pastor. He's just like any of these other guys, just a regular pastor.
He put a thing on his Facebook saying something about that, and I got busted because I said, I didn't know you're my Pope. I appreciate everything you've done for me. And he said that, your attendance has really been lacking a lot. And then I said, well, I guess by now you figured out I haven't been tithing either. But yeah, I mean, they were saying stuff like, oh, he left because of his Tommy McMurtry, and that's why it made me so mad. Because, and I'm just like, what in the world? And, stuff like that. It's just total lies, because first of all, I've never talked to Tommy McMurtry except for one time on a public Zoom call. And so, but they say stuff like that. They say, so I left because of Tommy McMurtry. Another one was I was an enemy of the church, and the reason I left and wanted to continue soul winning was because I was trying to steal people out of the church. I mean, just a month before, right before the anniversary, Pastor Thompson said that he wanted to ordain me as pastor. And I had not expressed any interest in that. In fact, from the beginning, I told him I didn't want to be a pastor. And I preached recently before he came in December, I think it was December, I preached a sermon out of First Timothy. And I said, if any man desires the office of a bishop, he desires a good work. And I said, look, I don't desire the office of a bishop. I'm just a volunteer for a season. And I said that to the congregation. And he heard that and he called me and said, oh man, that really stinks. I was kind of hoping you changed your mind on that. And I wanted to ordain you. And I said, well, yeah, I haven't changed my mind on that. So he comes to Spokane and preaches a sermon called New Pastors Will Train. And, obviously, and, in the sermon, it's like, hey, wives, get behind your husband because, you're hindering their work and whatever. I mean, the sermon's up there, you can go listen to it. But the whole thing, it was like an attack. That's what it felt like. It felt like it was like a big time attack or at least a big time jab. And so he's saying, well, we left because, we were secret enemies and all this stuff. Well, I'm going to take all these people away. Why don't I have them ordain me? And then I'd have all the people. Like it would be a lot easier than drawing them away. So the reasons we left, according to them, were that. And then it's also weird. Like I told him the reason we left, the number one reason, but the fellowship for the children and stuff. And it's almost like he accepted it, but then he just kept asking people. I hear people say that he's asking, like, why did he really leave? And I think he probably even asked you that. Like,
yeah, I was definitely asked what was the real reason why Chad left?
Yeah, it's like, it's just like he was so suspicious about it. And, like I said, I had a lot of reasons. And, even stuff that, Reason Files had put out and stuff like that, which I wouldn't have even known about Reason Files if he didn't tell me about them. But, stuff like that, the chat room stuff, which I don't want to get into, but stuff like that was part of it too. I mean, there was a whole bunch of reasons I left. But either way, I left. I wanted to leave. And if I want to leave for any reason, Idaho's a right to work state. And I believe that I have the right to leave a church, just like I have the right to work. You can't make somebody stay there. Yeah. And if I want to leave, who cares?
But your church was in Washington, which is not a right to work state.
I crossed over the line. So, but then, he said some of the reasons I wanted to leave was because of the COVID thing and the masks and all this stuff. And it goes on and on. But the real reason, or not the real reason, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter why I left. It matters that I just wanted to leave. And so let me go peaceably. And, the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers. They should be called the children of God. It says we should live peaceably with all men. If someone wants to leave your church, let them go. Don't hold them there. It's funny because I was thinking about every now and then coming back on Sunday night or something and just, popping and saying hi. And we had gone to different things that they had. They invited us to a little, party, going away party. And we were still friends with everybody. We weren't trying to draw anyone away. We actually were soul winning, continuing to soul win. And while we're soul winning, what are we doing? We're inviting people to that church. I'm putting my stamp of approval on that church. So it's really weird, the accusations of why we left when I'm doing the complete opposite.
So I want to ask about one other rumor. And I mean, maybe it's not even a rumor, but I definitely heard it from Pastor Thompson. So maybe it was just him, but I want to hear your take on probably my favorite rumor. I heard that you left Spokane because to give people some time frame, I left in March, about 3 weeks before Easter. Okay. And you left shortly before Easter, right? They're the same. So I've been told that you left because I poisoned you, that I reached out to you and told you that Pastor Thompson was a slumlord that was putting you guys in an unsafe building, and that I poisoned you and that's why you left. What do you have to say for yourself?
Yeah, I think it's funny that, because I've also heard that, but the reason I even met you was after I left, we had been in the chat room, or not in the chat room, but in the YouTube, and people were saying stuff, and somehow that got to you. And I believe I got a text from a guy, a number that I never seen before texted me, and it said, "Is this Chad?" And I'm like, okay, I got a lot of stuff going on right now. Like, who's this? So I just wrote back, yes. I'm like, who's this? Like, this is Ryan Gallagher. And I was thinking, he's like, can I call you? I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, this is interesting. And that's when we met. Other than that, the only interaction I'd ever had with you was when COVID started. Me, you, Brother Wynn, and Pastor Thompson were on as a four-way call. And other than that, I'd never spoken to you or seen you before. And so, no, I did not leave. There's zero reason I left due to you, because I didn't know you. I met you after I left. And
now you could see why people would think that, though, because I was upset about the unsafe building in Spokane. And I mean, it would make sense to call the Evangelist in Spokane, right?
Sure. So here's the thing, a lot of times people can draw lines and say, well, it seems like it would make sense that Ryan would have called him, and then, oh, wow, he left too. And so Ryan obviously poisoned him. But speculation is not fact. And for a pastor or anyone else to just say he left because of this, hey, you better have evidence of that. That's a false accusation if it's not true. And so, yeah, I mean, it's totally false. It had nothing to do with it. There was something you said that something jumped in. I wanted to say it, but it's looking back to me. Keep that. I'm getting older, and my senior moments are happening more and more frequent.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, there's been so many things you've said. I'm like, I want to, but yeah. So, can I?
I got it. It came back.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew it would. So it's actually, I don't know if it's funny, but I had been planning on leaving. And then Pastor Thompson called me one day and he told me that you left. And my first thought, selfishly, was, now I can't leave for a while because Ryan left and I can't dump that on him when Ryan already did it. And so actually your leaving had nothing to do with me. In fact, your leaving kept me there longer. So it was quite the opposite. If you had not left, I would have left earlier. And then you would have had the problem like that. So it's kind of funny that they say you're the reason I left. You're the reason I stayed longer.
You're welcome. So the other, and now I'm having a senior moment. There was something I just thought of. So can you give me a little bit of perspective? I know I gave my take on the lease in Spokane, and I know we obviously, like, we weren't talking at that point. Just so people are aware, I had to go back to the beginning of COVID and look at a meeting invite that was sent out. I didn't even have Chad's number stored in my phone. I had to go back and look at a meeting invite from that shared call that you're talking about to find his number. And I did so in response because, like he said, I saw people being really nasty to him and things being said about him online. And I never reached out to him before because I wasn't trying to poison the other church. I did not want to make Pastor Thompson think that I was trying to destroy the church in Hawaii and destroy the church in Spokane and destroy his life. That was never my intention. My intention was I didn't want to be a part of something that, I felt very strongly about. So I have my perspective on what happened with the lease negotiation. Can you kind of give me your perspective on, because that was shortly before you left too. I mean, it would have been about a month, but can you give me your perspective on your conversations with Pastor Thompson, or at least just what transpired and why you guys ended up staying there?
Yeah. So you're talking about in the building, where we ended up staying in the building.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So the landlord had came to me and he told me that he wanted us to move to the other side of the building, which if you've never been there, it's hard to explain, but the building it's got the vet clinic on the bottom. It's got a stairwell here and a stairwell here. And then there's like two wings of the building, one on each side, and they're connected by a hallway that's totally locked off. And the landlord wanted us to move over there. And, it made the parking worse. It made the visibility worse. It made all kinds of problems. And I was not happy about it. And Pastor Thompson knew I wasn't happy about it. And so when he came to preach in, I think, December, we walked the other building and looked at it, and he knew I wasn't happy about it. And so I don't know if I threw enough fit or whatever to stay on the other side, because we were gonna have to basically downgrade and do a lot of work to downgrade. And I did not want to do that. And so luckily the landlord let him stay there, luckily. But the thing is that he knew that I didn't like that part. And I've expressed problems, not safety problems, but I've expressed other problems with the building from day one. The building is just, it's a dump. You can't find it. It doesn't look like a church. He put a sign up there, and I'd been there for a long time, months and months before I even noticed the sign. In fact, somebody told me, I think it was him, he said, I paid $300 for that sign. I was like, what sign? I had to go outside and look for the sign. Oh, there is a sign there. And so it was just a terrible location. There's just a lot of weirdos hanging around that area. And I hated the building. It was really small, really scrunched. It just was not fitting for a church. And so your issues were with the safety, mine were with the functionality of it. Once you're in there and you're sitting down, everything seemed to be fine. But another thing that really this bothered me about the building, one thing that really bothered me is that I have a heart or a desire to reach old people. I really like elderly people, and I nursing homes, stuff like that. And so anyway, I would like to have elderly people at our church. And I told them one time that the stairs are not allowing that. You can't have elderly people. In fact, I went soul winning, probably a month before Easter, and I had this elderly couple. They both got saved, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to visit your church sometime." And they never did. And then the time that I left, the Sunday I wasn't there, they visited the church. And we were still in cahoots with everybody at the church. So they're telling me the stories about this and stuff. And they said, so-and-so came, the people that you had led to the Lord, and they couldn't get up the stairs. It took them like 10 minutes to get up the stairs, 5 or 10 minutes, whatever. They had to have people helping them step by step. And obviously they never came back. And I don't know if it's because of the stairs or what, but that kind of stuff bothered me. And I told Pastor Thompson one time that, it's not ADA compliant. You can never get a wheelchair in there. You can never get an elderly person up there that can not walk very well. And he said, well, our church doesn't really cater to that kind of elderly people anyway. It's more of a younger crowd. That really bothered me because, we're supposed to go ye all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. And I believe that includes elderly people as well and handicapped people. And I get it, if we just got started and that's all we could have at the moment, that's fine. But we did have a decent amount of money surplus coming in every month. And I was aware of it because, I counted the tithe and I kept the records. So I know what was there and I knew we could afford it. But he just was insistent that, oh no, we're gonna have to wait one more year. And something that bothered me about it too, and I don't know if this was right of me or not, but he was telling me, oh man, we got this great building in Vancouver. And it's awesome. It's standalone church building. He's just going on and on about it. And he said, maybe another year in this place, we'll get you a nicer building too. And I'm thinking, I don't know, I just felt kind of cheated. Like, it's not a personal thing for me. Like he's getting me a new house. It's just, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, I don't really feel like you care that much about the people that are over here in Spokane. And I'm not talking about me personally, I'm talking about the congregation in general. And so to me, it just felt like, oh yeah, this dump is good enough for you. But I felt like, and this is speculation, but I felt like the surplus that was coming in from Spokane is in probably a pretty decent part of how they're able to even get that building in Vancouver. Yeah, it could be speculative. I could be totally wrong there, but I don't think so.
Well, they're definitely, and I may be getting ahead of myself, but I know that we've both seen the bank statements that were quite shocking at this point.
Yeah.
And I did look at the amount that would come in from Spokane and the amount, the lease total, and other expenses. And I want to be clear on this too. When I first started doing that, it was the intention. Pastor Thompson had asked me to help him budget things out. And I believe what I told him, I'm not going to say what it was on, but I will say it was for personal spending, not anything like, don't go making rumors or anything. It wasn't like hookers or anything like that. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
but there was a particular line item that was astronomical, and it was for, used for him and, his family. And I told him, the words I used were, "This is astronomical. This is out of control. You, um, you have to get this under control, or the church finances are going to implode." And his response was, I spend money. I look at the balance, and if it's there, I spend it. And God's always blessed me in doing that, and I try to be generous, and so the money's going to come in. The issue that I had was that the money wasn't really coming in. We were in the negative with the amount of inflow outflow. We had a negative cash flow.
Yeah.
And so I told him it's only a matter of time before we're not able to meet our obligations, and this has to get in check. So I said, he asked me to help him make a budget. And so I did. So I started looking at each individual, church that was sending in money, and trying to, and let me clarify real quick there. Canada and the UK, they have separate bank accounts. That was not, I don't want to be, Ryan saying it's all cool. With the UK and Canada, Canada had been separate from day one. Because Sure Foundation can't have a bank account there. But I worked through the budget with him on that, and he kept telling me, I'm going to get it right, but it didn't change. And that was even going back to the conversations that I had with him about paying for things, personal things, using the church bank account for personal expenses. I discussed, the tax implications, because the church is registered as a nonprofit corporation. It's not a pre-registered 501c3 with the IRS, but it is a nonprofit corporation with the state of Washington. And I explained that you have to do things correctly when it comes to taxation on that, especially when you're talking about things that could be construed as personal income, that needs to be accounted for. Otherwise, it leaves the church in a really bad situation, because the people are donating to what they assume to be a tax exempt organization. So therefore, if they're claiming that on their taxes are deductible. But if the IRS decides to audit you and you're not a pre-registered 501c3, the giver who claimed that tax exemption on their personal income taxes has the responsibility of proving that the church, the organization, is actually a tax exempt organization. And I said to him that the spending that's taking place, this could be construed as profit sharing. This could be construed as fringe benefits. And the way that it appears on paper is that this is a slush fund, for your personal use. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that he didn't pay church expenses out of it. He absolutely did. I was just saying, this has to get in order. This has to be done legally. And I was told that was going to happen. And I waited months. I kept being told that's going to happen. That's going to happen. So then when he's telling me about the budget, I'm going to get this in order. I'm going to get this in order. It didn't happen. And then when it came to a head, and I'm sure he'll say I didn't give him enough time, but these conversations about, the personal expenses and stuff, they had been going on since August of 2020. And it wasn't that I was trying to control what he was saying, he was spending. It wasn't that I was like, it was more so because at that point I didn't know the extent of it. It was more so my concern for him personally and the church members. And I had a conversation with him, and I begged him. I said, Pastor, I care about you. It's not legal. And, I'm afraid that something is going to happen. And, if there's an audit, if the IRS starts looking at you, I'm afraid of the IRS saying that you tried to evade taxes. Now, again, I'm not accusing him of evading taxes. I do want to be clear that subsequent conversations, he's told me he's going to get all this right. And I hope that he is. But I'm just telling you what the conversations that we had were. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, budgeting it out, how does, what's going on in Spokane. And yeah, I mean, I can definitely attest that the expenses in Spokane, the income that was coming in Spokane and the expenses, there was certainly a surplus. And that's what I told him. I actually gave him a budget of $2,000 to $3,000 for the building, which was more than before. When I said, hey, we have time, we have a month, we can spend $2,000 to $3,000 on this building, give me a month and I will find you a building that's safe under that rate. But he said we couldn't afford it. I knew we could afford it, but not with the spending continuing the way that it was.
Yeah.
I think there was one other thing. There's others. We could talk for hours, right? But I wanted to address. I mean, I did see some talk and on the sermon on Sunday. And for clarification too, I feel like I'm doing all these disclaimers and clarification, but I know how the rumor mill is. I don't stock Pastor Thompson's sermons, and I'm pretty certain you don't. But here's the thing: when you leave, there are people that, especially when they're talking about you, or when there's things that are said that might be construed, people send things. Did you hear he said this? And so it's not that I'm stalking. I don't think you're stalking, but
Yeah.
I did get sent Sunday sermons, and I want to know, do you have hundreds of troll accounts on YouTube?
I have thousands, actually.
Thousands? Wow.
Yeah, I addressed that in
Chad, how do you have time for all of that? Do you live off stimulus? Is that what you're doing?
I live in my mom's basement.
Mama's basement,
stimulus.
and you're living off stimulus, and you have thousands of troll accounts. Okay.
Thousands, millions, actually.
Millions.
Yeah,
Okay.
billions.
That's
impressive.
impressive.
So no, I do not have hundreds of troll accounts. I mean, that claim is so ridiculous. And so what happens?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, no. What happens is he will preach something that makes a lot of people mad. And then he'll get a lot of thumbs down and get a lot of people commenting, and he blames them all on me. And so I think you were just about to ask me about the two that talk to each other.
Yes, the two.
I could tell you were going to ask me.
You are Aaron Thompson on.
No,
you created. You are. I heard it. It was in a sermon, so therefore it is true.
Oh,
you made a troll account by the name of Aaron Thompson, and you made a troll account by the name of SFBC Vancouver, and you tried to make it look like Pastor Thompson had split personality disorder and was arguing back and forth with himself on YouTube.
Yeah. In the words of Pastor Aaron Thompson, that's super weird.
That's super weird.
The thing is that here's the thing that bothers me about that. Pastor Thompson gets up on Sunday and says boldly that I made two accounts that look like him talking back and forth to each other. Okay, first of all, that's not true. I did not do that. I've told him on several occasions, that is not me. When he must have first saw those or something, he sent me a text that said, "You psycho." I mean, I have the text, "You psycho. Why are you making accounts pretending to be me?" And I was like, who's a psycho? Like, why are you calling me a psycho and accusing me of this? I did not do this. Like, what is your problem? And, even later, he tells me he's going to destroy me. He's going to nuke me. And it's like, what are you talking about? And so the thing about that bothers me the most isn't that he suspects me of that. It's that he boldly proclaims that's me. And then 5 seconds later, he says, or it's one of his buddies or somebody like him. And so, when you boldly proclaim something, if I were to say, Ryan stole this, okay, people are going to remember that Ryan stole this. And then if I, a few seconds later, say, or it was somebody like Ryan or one of his friends, people have already heard that you stole that, and it burns in their head. And so when he gets up there and boldly says these statements about me or anyone else, it says, hey, this person did this, or somebody like him, people remember, oh, that person did that, and they take it as fact. And that really bothers me. And so, he talks a lot about railing, false accusations, stuff like that. If you don't know that that's me 100%, how can you come up there and boldly say it? And I'm telling you right now, there's 0%. It is not me. And so I have seen it. I think it's hilarious. I don't know why he takes it so serious. I think it's funny. I mean, I honestly do.
I thought it was pretty funny too.
Yeah, I mean,
For the
funny in a
record, it's
way.
not me either. So,
It's not either, but it's funny because there's another guy, another troll named Ben the Butt Kiss, and he made a comment, and I'd never seen him before. He made a comment, and one of the church members in Vancouver said, "Oh, it's the Argons." And I'm like, so now I'm Ben the Butt Kiss too. I mean, I saw on Sunday's sermon, somebody had put a ton of comments, like it looked like Russian bots or something. And I was thinking, I'm going to get the blame for this. It's like all these comments that said hoot or something like that. It was like hoot, Rennie, hoot. I was like, I know that they're going to get up next, probably tomorrow and say, now he made 100 Russian bots and said hoot. And I'm just like, I kind of chuckle, but I laugh at everything. I just think everything's kind of funny. And so I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny, but I don't know why I'm going to get the blame for it. But
so for the record, you are not Aaron Thompson, you are not SFBC Vancouver, and you are not the maker of Russian bots.
Okay, so this is my Bible.
This
is my right hand on the Bible. Okay, I'm gonna have to hold it like this. I am not any of those things. Okay, this is a King James Bible too, just so it's proof. This is a real Bible. Okay.
So you brought up something in there. You said something that was really interesting because it made me think of why I shared the bank statements with you in the first place. And you said, you can't say Ryan stole something and not have it burned in people's memories. Now, I'm going to get to all of the stuff that was said about me, or at least, talk about what happened when we left a little bit more. But, I think you're right. I think you can't say something like Ryan stole something and not have people not hear it. Yeah. And I believe there was an accusation. Can you kind of tell me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but so when I left, what was your conversation? What have your conversations up until the point that we talked, or even after that? What were your conversations with Pastor Thompson? What sort of things did he say about me?
Let me think. So he said, I should have wrote this down, but basically he said, one of the things he said that, was kind of after the bank statements, but he said what he's accusing me of, he's doing himself. And so, when I look at the bank statements, I think, oh my word, he's literally, this is by definition, this is theft. I mean, you're saying I don't take a salary and then you take a bunch of fringes and stuff. That's lying. And he's basically accusing you of doing what he thinks you're telling me, he's saying you did. So whatever that is, it's not like he's saying, okay, Ryan's stealing. He didn't tell me Ryan was stealing, Ryan's doing this, but he's saying whatever he's saying about me, he's guilty of himself. So, and he knows, or I'm assuming, I can't tell you what his mind's really thinking, but I'm assuming that he's assuming that you told me about the bank statements, which alludes to theft and that kind of stuff. And so essentially I took it as, okay, because that's what I had thought. So when he says that, I'm thinking, okay, he's saying that Ryan is basically stealing and Ryan's being sloppy with the money. And he had alluded several things about, I'm being played, I don't know if specifically it was Ryan, but he thinks somebody's playing me and I'm not getting all the facts right. And I should have came to him and all this stuff. And, I had told him just recently, I already had 2 witnesses. I had a person tell me the story and I had the bank statements to back up that story. And I believe what you showed me based on those 2 witnesses. And so at this point, the reason I didn't come and talk to you about it is because you've been nasty to me. And I don't, at this point, with the way you've been to me, I didn't want to get into it with him. It was irrelevant. At this point, it's just like, I've already made up my mind that you're not doing things right. And so not you, I mean, Pastor Thompson. And so honestly, I didn't really want to hear his side at that point because he'd already shown his true colors to me. And so it's kind of just done with it.
Yeah.
But the other reason, the reason he told me you left, this was earlier on, it was more about Ryan's being ridiculous about the building. And it was a lot about the safety of the building. He said it's a lot about Spokane and how the building's not safe. And he's like, you think it's safe, right? And I was like, well, I never had a problem with it. I didn't really think about it until, you expressed your concerns. I never thought about it. So I was like, okay, well, the way he told me about you leaving, it was almost like Ryan's being ridiculous and he's over cautious and that kind of stuff. And I thought, okay, well, I don't know Ryan, so I just kind of, when people tell me stuff, I don't really receive it all the way. I just kind of think about it for a while. I kind of take it as like, okay, well, everybody, when they first get their side, they seem just, and then the neighbor comes and he searches it out. Once I heard your side of the story, then I could kind of weigh out, because now I heard both sides. And so, but originally it was you left because of the building and all this stuff. And then it turned into you're doing what he's being accused of and that kind of stuff.
So you've seen the bank statements. Let me ask you this. I know you know the particular line item that I'm talking about that was astronomical.
Yeah.
Was any of that spending committed in Hawaii?
Oh, I do not recall seeing one purchase in Hawaii. Yeah. And that was another reason why obviously I would believe your story, because if the things that are being most of the time on those credit cards, you have, I mean, just give an illustration, let's say Walmart. It'll say Walmart, when I buy it, Walmart, and it says the city I bought it in. So I'm seeing purchases that constantly are saying Vancouver, California, wherever he's going and preaching, whatever. And so, no, I didn't see any in Hawaii. And if there was some in there, it was very small, because the things that popped out at me, the big ones were Vancouver.
Right.
So yeah, no, I definitely did not see. If I had seen the bank statements, heard your story, saw the bank statements, and it was Hawaii, I'd be like, Ryan, we got to talk.
Right. You got issues, dude.
Yeah. Why is Pastor Thompson buying stuff in Hawaii for himself and shipping it to your house?
Yeah.
That would have been a big red flag, but no, it was not Hawaii. It was all local Vancouver purchases. Not all, but a lot of it.
So the other thing I want to talk about real quick is you mentioned the reason that Pastor Thompson told you left. I know we're going pretty long here. I do want to keep this as concise as possible, but
yeah,
I want to talk a little bit about when I left, the agreement that I came to with Pastor Thompson. I know you talked about it, and he kind of went back on that, and they started attacking you. And for me, I haven't been, you say, oh, they didn't mention your name. I haven't been attacked publicly by name yet. In fact, he used my name twice on Sunday. And both times were seemingly in ways to say that, oh, well, Ryan accused Seth Bookout, for those of you who don't know. I don't think he used his name in that sermon, but I knew Seth going back all the way to Africa, like to Botswana. And he said that I accused Seth of wrestling too hard with my son on a rooftop in the Philippines, and rebuked him publicly in front of everyone at a dinner. Well, there's two problems with that statement. One, I never had dinner with Seth on a rooftop in the Philippines. I had a lunch with them. Second, I did have a problem with Seth during that time. Had nothing to do with him wrestling with my son. In fact, the only wrestling that I remember Seth doing was with another guy from the church in Vancouver. I never publicly rebuked him. Not that it really matters that I need to defend Seth or anything like that. You guys can make your own judgment on Seth. But the point is, my name was used to invoke something that was completely untrue to attack another person. And regardless of how I feel about him or how you feel about him, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be a witness to something that didn't happen. So the second thing was regarding Pastor McMurtry. And I'll say this, the story that he told on that was pretty much for the most part, true. I did question there was a pastor in Philadelphia, and that Pastor McMurtry was saying, hey, this guy's a good guy. Why don't you go check out his YouTube channel? And I did say something in the new IFB group, and I'll say this, in hindsight, I probably should have left it alone. It was, I don't like the Pentecostal movement. I don't like the charismatics and the thought of me, like my thought was, oh, this guy was a Pentecostal and now he's, trying to do that. But honestly, it had nothing to do with me. He was in Philadelphia. I was 3,000 miles, possibly 5,000 miles. I can't remember if it happened after I was already in Hawaii, but I was a long ways away and I got called a bozo and an idiot. I honestly, since he wanted to use that to attack Pastor McMurtry, I'll just say this. I'm actually kind of grateful that it happened. And the reason I'm grateful it happened is because it spurred me to get out of that Facebook group. And once I got out of that Facebook group, I realized, wow, there's a lot of drama that goes on in those Facebook groups that I really just shouldn't be a part of. And so I actually deleted myself from a lot of other stuff. And I just decided I was going to use social media literally just for my family. Like if you look on my Facebook page now, I have like 5 people on there. I think it's my mom, my dad, my brother, and my wife. Maybe that's 4. I don't know. But I basically just got rid of everyone. Not because I was like, oh, I'm going to delete everyone. I hate you guys. It was just, and what was great about it is Facebook was really the only social media that I had left. And I used it to message with my parents and like video chat with my parents and my grandmother. But a lot of stress went away when I got rid of, YouTube and just stopped getting involved in other people's business, and so that was a big growth opportunity for me. So I think it's kind of funny that gets used as a negative to preach against another pastor, when, to be quite honest, I don't think he did anything wrong in that situation. So aside from all that, my name hasn't been used publicly, but there have been jabs. Now, that doesn't mean that things haven't been said. And going back to the last conversation I had with Pastor Thompson before I left, we came to the agreement. I told him my grievances, and honestly, it got a little heated at a couple points. And we ended up with the resolution that I'm going to leave quietly. And I said, I would like to leave quietly. The people in Hawaii, they knew what was going on. I had to give them a reason why I was leaving. And it was, the church was very small at that point. I said, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to go see if I can find another local pastor that we can sit under. And he said, I said, it'd be better for you too, because then you'll have to worry about coming over here and all of that. And he said, well, what if you can't find a pastor to take you on? And I said, if I can't find a pastor to take me on, then I'm going to go sit down at a local church and I'm just going to be a blessing. And ultimately that's what happened. Like I went to another church, but the agreement that we came to was he was going to tell everyone that we were leaving peaceably, that we were still friends, that they could still be friends with us. The Tuesday following that, that conversation was on a Monday. The Tuesday following that, there was a men's leadership conference or men's leadership class. And Pastor Thompson told the men I was leaving. And he told them he was disbanding the church in Hawaii. And he said that he had to give them reason. He told them that he had to give them reasons why he was leaving or why I was leaving. And so he told them that I was leaving because I was accusing him of being a slumlord in Spokane, that I was accusing him of being covetous. And then he included a third reason that had nothing to do with why I left. He said that I was leaving because I believe that Bruce Mejia was preaching a false gospel and he was okay with it. Now, that is something I've said in the past. I'll be clear on the record on that. I do believe that Bruce Mejia's believe in vain. I do believe that that has gone over into perseverance of the saints. And I brought that to Pastor Thompson on multiple occasions. And there were times where he agreed with me. And, but it had nothing to do with why I left. And so that was set. Almost immediately after that, people started deleting us on Facebook. They're deleting my wife. I was already not friends with people on Facebook, but everyone started deleting my wife on Facebook. People wouldn't take her phone calls, and she didn't understand why. The last conversation that she had with Sherry Thompson was, oh yeah, we're going to be coming over to Hawaii for the mission trip still in June. Maybe we can get lunch together while we're over there. So we thought, oh yeah, we're still friends. And then people are deleting her on Facebook. And it's like, well, if you're telling people we're still friends, you're allowed to still be friends with them. They're leaving peaceably. Why is it that people are deleting us on Facebook or deleting my wife on Facebook, not taking her phone calls? And this went on for quite a while, where it was just like this slow bleed. And there were a couple women, and I'm not going to use anyone's names, but there were a couple women that told her, yes, there were things that were said about you, but we can't tell you what those are. We're under the authority of our pastor. Please just respect our decision. We can't speak to you. And so they're saying, hey, we can't speak to you. Some of them said, my husband doesn't think that I should be speaking to you, but they're telling Greta, there are things that are said and we don't even know what they are. And this happened over a slow period of time. And my wife would text someone and they say, I can't talk to you. And, I will say this, when my wife said, when she texts them and they say, we can't talk to you. And she says, what was said about me? And no one gives any response. She just assumes, okay, well, let me tell you, if something's being said about you, let me tell you why I left. And, let me tell you the issues that I had. And my wife brought up, we left because there was financial impropriety because of the safety of the building. And she assumed that Pastor Thompson was going to talk about, Bruce Mejia's thing that we both felt strongly about. And so she said, just as an aside, this is what he's probably saying this is another reason why we left. It's not, but here's an issue that we have. So fast forward a couple weeks, a couple months, I don't even know how long it's been now, but I've gotten several text messages from Pastor Thompson, just randomly like, you're being too obvious. I know you're getting people to do your dirty work for you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I know you're just being too obvious. He accused me of being a troll or having a troll account because I commented as myself on a YouTube video of Dirty Donnie trolling, saying something, I don't know, something else, but I commented as myself, like it says Ryan Gallagher. And then because there were other people that commented below that, I was somehow this troll. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, you go and comment on a YouTube video, other people are going to comment as well. So I had a conversation with him and it was all kind of linked together, but he told me, he's like, I don't get why you guys can't just move on. Your wife keeps texting and calling ladies in the church. I don't know why you guys can't just move on. I'm not friends with people at Amazing Grace. I'm not pals with people at Skyview, the church that we all left together. Are you? Why can't, if you guys have a good church you're going to, why can't you just move on and, leave these people alone? And I talked to him and I said, I didn't know that we were supposed to leave people alone. My wife's reaching out to people because this is our family. One thing that happens in the new IFB is, for one reason or another, you become closer with your church family than you are with your actual family. And then on top of it, we move to an island where we don't know anyone except for the people in the church. And, he's restarting the Hawaii church. And I don't want to talk to them because I'm afraid he's going to think like, oh, I'm trying to sow division with them. So we basically have no one. And we're completely silenced because I find out that he's accusing my wife and I of being railers. Now, we only found this out because Greta texted another lady in the church, and finally someone told her what the accusation was. They said, please don't text me anymore. I can't be talking to you. You railed against my pastor. You really need to go to him. This happened this past week. This happened in August. I left in March, but people stopped talking to us in March. And that whole time, Pastor Thompson was saying, well, I can't control what people do. If they don't want to be friends with you, they don't have to be friends with you. You know, you should probably tell your wife to stop calling people and stop texting people. If they don't want to be friends, they don't want to be friends, but I'm not telling you to do anything. The last conversation I have with him, no, it turns out he said that Greta was a railer at that men's preaching night, at the men's, you know, the day after I talked to him, he's accusing Greta of being a railer, and everyone's deleting her, and everyone's, you know, stops talking. And so we're being gaslit this entire time, being told, oh, your friends just don't want to talk to you. They don't care about you. And maybe that's the case. Maybe they don't want to talk to us. Maybe they don't care about us, but it was a lie. It was a flat out lie. And I know, you know, and I know your wife knows the hurt that you go through when these people that, I mean, are your family. I mean, they're your family in Christ, your brothers and sisters in Christ, when they just cut you off. And then on top of that, you don't even know what the accusation is. You know, railing obviously is a 1 Corinthians 5 sin where you can be kicked out of the church. But the thing is, we weren't kicked out of the church. We left the church. We left the church because I didn't want to sit under the authority of Pastor Thompson any longer because of what I believed. I didn't say, hey, I want to stop being friends with all these people. You know, if I had to move for a job, I don't see it being any different. I moved for a job 30 miles away. Am I not allowed to talk to those people because I'm not going to that church anymore? But then to find out, no, it's actually, you know, you're being accused of railing. And there's no opportunity for restoration because we don't even know what the accusation is. The accusation hasn't even been made public. I'm sure it's going to be made public now, but you know, I was lied to from the get-go. And, you know, and he wants to, we've had several conversations and he's said, oh, you know, I want to make peace. And honestly, I wanted to make peace too. But this last conversation we had, I asked him, you know, he has been saying that I'm holding the bank statements over his head, that, you know, and I want to be done with it. Honestly, it's been such a really difficult thing for my family. You know, I didn't ask to have that information thrown in my lap. Like, I didn't ask, you know, my pastor asked me to help them get a building. My pastor asked me to create financial statements for 3 years because he had never done a single one. There'd never been any accounting of anything financially. I asked for financial statements and I was told I only have bank statements. And so I had to create 3 years of those. And I'm given with this information. And before he lets me, you know, before he gives me the okay to go and do this, he says to me, you're lucky I trust you. And I did. I absolutely did. But my trust only goes so far. You know, I'm not going to trust somebody. I can't be a keeper of information when the law was broken. I mean, that's 100%. It was broken. And again, I believe personally that it was covetous. And I'm tired of keeping the secret and having him call me and text me and having to spend long hours on the phone with him because he thinks I'm gonna out him publicly. Now, he says that he is doing everything right as far as the IRS, that he's getting things fixed. He believes that he didn't do anything wrong. He believes that his behavior was not covetous. I obviously disagree with that. But the thing is, there's no authority structure in the church. You know, 1 Corinthians 5, covetousness, you can be kicked out of the church. There is no authority structure in the church. There's no accountability when the pastor's the one being covetous, or, or there being an accusation of it. The system is set up so that I'm the only person who ever saw the full bank statement. I mean, maybe his wife did, but I'm being given this information. And if I'm supposed to have 2 or 3 witnesses to, don't bring an accusation against an elder, but before 2 or 3 witnesses, how is there 2 witnesses? Because no one else has seen the bank statements. And the second that I go with the bank statements to someone else, now I'm just trying to destroy him.
Yeah, now you're a railer or whatever.
And so, I mean, there's no authority structure whatsoever. And I'm not saying, churches have to have a deacon board. I'm not saying, I'm not even telling people how to run their churches. But I will say this, for all the talk about Pastor McMurtry, I do know this. I know that he recently instituted a trustee board at his church, and not that the trustee board is the one who, tells him how to run things, but there's someone there to provide accountability. And it's, my understanding is it's kind of like church members, if they have a situation like this, they can go to one of the trustees. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know how it works. I just read about it, but there's no system. Yeah, there's accountability, but at Sure Foundation, there is 0 accountability for the pastor. And so it's at this point where my wife and I have had all our friends just stripped away from us with an accusation that we weren't even aware of, wasn't made public. We weren't given the opportunity to, give our side of the story. We miss our friends, and we're coming to the realization that it was set up so there could be no restoration.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked him about the last conversation I had with him. I said, look, if you're making an accusation, I need to know about it so that if there's, we can work towards some sort of restoration. And he said, I think the damage is already done. I don't think there can be any restoration. So the first time I'm hearing about the accusation, I'm also being told, yeah, you're beyond hope. There can't be any restoration because of what's already happened. And I said to him, I said, look, if we're all supposed to, if the family of God, if the body of Christ, if we're supposed to all get to heaven and, get along up there and spend eternity together, why is it that we can't get along here? Why is it that there can't be restoration here?
Yeah.
And he said, I don't think that can happen. So ultimately my goal was, I want to get this information off my back. I don't want Pastor Thompson, calling me anymore and saying, hey, you're going to come out with that. I don't want him, accusing me of anything anymore. I don't want him saying I'm a railer anymore. I mean, I know we want our friends back. We miss them. I don't know if that's going to happen. But ultimately, I asked Pastor Thompson to be transparent. I asked him to be transparent a long time ago. I asked him to get things right. He says he's getting things right. I don't know. I mean, I kind of have to take him on his word, but I know that he does not believe that what he did was wrong. And I know that he says that he's doing everything to make it right. That being said, because I don't want to be a keeper of this secret anymore. I think that the people that have donated, people that have tithed or made offerings, or pastors that support, the ministry, I think that they're entitled to see what we've seen.
So do I. Yeah.
And I'm not gonna make anything public. I'm not gonna publicly drop bank statements, but I will say this. And Chad, I think you have an email for this. We can.
I do have an email. I wanted to say a couple of things about what you said, though. One is, the pain that you go through when your church family just throws you under a bus like that.
Yeah.
And people don't realize how hard that is until it happens to them. I could feel it in your story. It takes me back to how I felt, because there's been times after I've left and since they've turned and just treated me so nasty that, I mean, I've struggled with it a lot. I don't want to go into all the details, but I really struggled with it. And, you pour into people and you try to, love people and you really do genuinely love them. And then they just turn on you on a dime. And in your case, it's like, I don't even know the reason why they're turning on me, in your case. And it's very, very painful. And I would just, if anyone listens to this and they think, oh yeah, well, you shouldn't have done this or that. Look, I'm telling you, someday something's going to happen to you and you'll know what it feels like to have your whole church family just turn on you and treat you like a wicked reprobate. Because that's basically where this ends. Even making this video will probably get us labeled reprobate. And so just people need to realize that this is the kind of crowd that you're hanging around. And, and people that are in there, if you're still in there and oh, I can't talk to, the Argons, or I can't talk to the Gallaghers because they're not, in lockstep with our pastor. Look, you know what? You quit being so loyal to just the pastor. You've been hearing a lot of sermons lately about loyalty. You're supposed to have our loyalty to Christ, not to a pastor, not to a church. I agree with supporting your church, supporting your pastor. But hey, if your pastor steps out of line, our loyalty is to be with Christ. And so, it's kind of like Peter said, we have to obey God rather than men. We got to be loyal to Christ over men. And when a man steps outside of Christ's commands, our loyalty stops and we go with Christ. And I don't understand how people can just take people that they know believe the same things they believe, especially about, Christ, salvation, all that stuff. And then they just treat you like garbage. It's terrible. So I just want to say that. But the other thing about the bank stuff, the thing that bothers me the most about it, I heard him a couple, maybe it was Thursday night, it was a couple sermons ago or whatever. He said, he's talking about money, and he said that it's none of your business how much I make as the pastor. Well, I think that's absolutely a donor's business. If you're donating to the church, you're tithing, it is your business. It's not like me saying, hey, what I make in my company is none of your business. Look, I'm out in the world, in the corporate world, earning a living. It isn't your business what I make, but you're not donating to my salary. So that's why it's not your business. I'm not selling you a product. I mean, I'm selling you a product. I'm not giving you something. So as a pastor, you have an obligation to be accountable to your people that are donating to you. I'm sorry, but it's not none of your business. It is the church's business. And the biggest problem I have with that is when, we've heard him say it many times, I don't make a salary. I'm a volunteer. And I've even preached that myself when I'm preaching, hey guys, I'm up here as a volunteer. I'm not making a salary. And when I say that, it's true. But and even on that last term, he said, I'll show you my pay stubs. But you know what, if you look at the bank statements, the thing that alarmed me the most was, I heard a pastor recently say, no legitimate pastor uses the church money as their own personal piggy bank. And that is exactly what I see when I look at those bank statements, is that the pastor is using the church money as his own personal piggy bank. And the thing that bothers me the most about it is you have a guy that from the beginning of those bank statements, from day one, I look at those bank statements, it was the same way all the way through. It seemed to get worse and worse, but it was the same personal spending on the church money, the church account. And so if you have, the church buying you things like, just anything, food, clothes, rent, whatever it is, I'm not even saying what it is. I'm just saying if the church is giving you some kind of tangible item, that is money. That in the IRS's eyes, that's translated to money. If the church buys you a car, even on Wheel of Fortune, if you win Wheel of Fortune, I learned this when I was a kid, you have to pay taxes on everything you won. And right. So, if the church is giving, because that's a gift, but you have to pay the tax on the value. If the church is giving you things, if they're buying you, like I said, if they're buying you anything personal, clothes, rent, car, whatever, even if it's just fuel, if the church is paying for your stuff in any way, that is a salary. It's a benefit. It's like a fringe benefit. It's a perk. But you know what? To get up and say, hey, I don't take a salary, I don't take a check, and you're spending personal on the church account, that is an outright lie. And you know what? Ananias and Sapphira did something very similar to that. They sold a piece of property and they came and they laid the value at the apostles' feet and they said, we gave it all. And he said, hey, did you sell it for this much? He said, yeah, I sold it for this much. And God struck them dead. And the whole thing is, why did God strike them dead? Because they wanted to take the glory of giving all when they weren't really giving all. And that is the thing that scares me about this situation. You have a man that says, I'm giving myself as a volunteer. I'm giving you everything as a volunteer. When in reality, you're making money on it. And so that's a very big sin. And I believe in God's eyes, that's a very big sin to tell people that I'm doing this for free and I'm taking, but meanwhile, taking money on the side. And that's why I agree with your statement that anybody that has been a member of that church, donated to that church, whatever, we have an email. We're going to put this video on a channel called Truth Be Told. And with that, there's an email. It's called truthbetold632@gmail.com. We'll put it probably in the link, right?
Yeah.
So truthbetold632@gmail.com. If you reach out to us and tell us, we're not going to probably, you just tell us who you are. I mean, first name, and yeah, I went to this church or whatever. Just, I don't know, whatever. Ryan can give you the details there maybe. But if you were a part of the church, we will give you the bank statements.
We just want to make sure that you were we're not, like I said, we're not going to share this publicly. This information you've donated to the church. This information belongs to you.
This is our way of taking the satellite model and bringing it before the church.
Yeah.
That's why we're saying
we were silenced from the church. And I would agree with that. I mean, this is the only opportunity we were lied about. We were told, there were false accusations made against us, and we have no contact with the church. So, for those of you who are members, those of you who have donated, we will send you those bank statements, and, you can have my witness, you can have Chad's witness, and you can have the bank statements, and you can decide for yourself. I have said personally what I believed it to be. And you guys can make that decision for yourself if you'd like.
Here's an exhortation too. A lot of times people hear stuff like, oh, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see that because I don't want to mess up what I got going on. We're supposed to be, especially in this movement of the new IFB, we're supposed to be all about the truth. You should know the truth. The truth will make you free, the Bible says. And the truth, you shouldn't be afraid of the truth. If you're going to this church, I don't want to see that because I don't want it to affect my life in any way. Hey, then you don't really love the truth. You should take a look at the bank statement. You should reach out to us and take a look at the bank statements and have a seat for yourself. And then you make your own decision. If you look at those bank statements, you say, hey, these guys are liars, they're railers. Everything in the bank statements is squeaky clean. Hey, then that's what you can think. But if you look at them and you come to the same, I believe if you look at them, you come to the same conclusion we did. This is not right. And why are we making this video? Because we believe in bringing to light the things that should be brought to light. And this is not the way that Pastor Thompson has dealt with the finances, the way that he treats people when they leave the church, the way that he, lies about people, whatever. That's not right. And this is us, like you said, bringing it before the church. And you know what? Other people will probably see it too, but we're going to give the statements to those who actually are part of the church.
That's great. Do you got anything else you want to add? I think I've covered just about everything I wanted to.
I mean, honestly, we could talk and talk and talk, and there's so much stuff to talk about, but I think the video's probably gone long enough.
Yeah.
But honestly, like both me and Ryan don't have this, oh, we're just gonna get him, because he got us first or something. We want the truth out, not out of vengeance, but we feel an obligation to get this out. When Ryan had that, he felt really, oh, what I did this. When he shared it with me, I felt kind of dirty. Like, oh my goodness, I have this information. What do I do with this? It's a weighty feeling. And so we want to just get it off of our chest, air it out to the church. And if the church looks at it and doesn't want to do anything about it, then we're going to wash our hands and we're going to go, Ryan's going to go to the beach and I'm going to go fishing.
I'm gonna go clap. Maybe I'll go fishing too.
From down to Idaho, we'll go fishing together.
Okay, well then you got to come to Hawaii and we'll catch some marlin. What?
I'll come to Hawaii, yeah.
Yeah, come to Hawaii. We'll catch some marlin or something, or some big old ahi.
Awesome. So, yeah, I don't really have anything else unless you do.
Okay. No, that's all we got. So yeah, check the link in the description for the email. Again, just shoot us an email, tell us who you are, and just give me some sort of idea of who you are and why I should believe that that you actually went to the church and you're because I don't have all of your guys' emails and stuff like that, but or if you donated or you support the ministry, like a pastor that supports the ministry or anything like that. Just let me know who you are, and we'll reach out to you and share that with you, and you guys can make your own decision. So that's all we got. Thank you guys, and God bless.
Yep, thank you.